Welcome back, everyone, to Data Science for Everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about research proposals. Let's get started. So, research proposals are great for us to allow to have a forward looking aspect into our research. Now, we're going to look at various elements of a research proposal. So, what needs to be said, why it needs to be said, and how best to say it. It is going to be up to you to take these elements and translate them into some sort of framework that you are required to follow, be that some formal funding application or written response to questions in line with management relating to our proposed research or academic proposal, and just help define in making your own criteria. Now, why do we need to write a proposal? Well, in academia at least, it's for funding or for our dissertation or thesis. So, in case of the funding research, it's quite simple that there's just no funding without a proposal. All funding bodies have their own framework for a submission of a research proposal. Academic research, such as a dissertation, will always have some sort of form of requirements of a proposal. Something this is going to be assessed and is kind of going to be taught throughout this series. Other times, it's going to be some sort of intrinsic part of a dissertation module. So again, each of those are going to be composed for whatever their requirements are for that funding body, whether it be an academic institution or a business. The proposal coverage. So what is the external requirements a research proposal should cover? The what, the how, the why of the research. So what are you proposing to do? How are you proposing to do it? And why you have selected the proposed strategy. But we need to remember that there are two main purposes to the research proposal: to provide others with the information they need, and to provide yourself, the researcher, with a plan that will guide you during your investigation. A well-constructed research proposal will provide you with a very useful tool throughout the research investigation. The structure of a research proposal. Now, requirements for a research proposal can often differ slightly according to whoever you're writing that proposal to. Okay, their funding body, their professional regulations, etc. There are almost always a universal accepted list of contents that is expected. Regulations differ from university to university, often within individual departments. So we need to be aware of exactly what the requirements are. And I would suggest that for you guys to always research and look up yourself what your institution requires within their scope. The aim is to provide a comprehensive list and to detail what you should include in a proposal. It is your responsibility to make sure that you conform to the requirements of the target audience, whether reviewers, academic research supervisors, or your manager. So the structure of a research proposal. Examine the proposed structure, and which is going to include clearly define a title and introduction, statement of the aims and objectives or hypothesis, a review of the literature, research design, your intended sample, procedures for data processing and analysis, anticipated research outputs, anticipated constraints, ethical considerations, and a project timetable. So clearly define your title and your introduction. So we need to make sure that you get our titles just right, okay? This may sound really obvious, but it is often given little attention by some people writing, okay? It often is given, we need to make sure that it is clear and accurate, and a literate research proposal title should be those things. It will be the first thing that any reviewer reads, so it'll be vital that it is accurate reflection of what you're proposing to do and that it is clear and concise. Remember that it may well be a working title in the beginning. Things can often change and do often change as the research progresses. However, that is no excuse for not making it clear at the beginning. The introduction to a proposal should also include a brief rationale explaining where this idea for research began, the evidence from the literature that there is a need for this particular investigation. Now, this is a brief preamble that sets the scene and the tone for the rest of the proposal and gets the message across that why this research is actually needed and why it is productive, or why you are going to be productive at least. Now, it is not necessary to provide a lot of detail. That will follow in the other sections. An introduction is going to highlight the contribution this proposed research will make to the body, and it's going to sound rather a large task, okay, to claim that this is going to happen. But you need to remember that there's going to be rarely large leaps in knowledge, okay? You're just looking for a small incremental growth with this new contribution to research, however small or localized that contribution may be. Statement of aims and objectives. It's going to be vital that you present clear and concise research aims and objectives and state the hypothesis or hypotheses you intend to test. At this stage, any statement you make must clearly reflect your understanding of the problem in question and your understanding of the capacity of the research and to respond to it. The detail of the methods and techniques will follow later in a proposal, but do not make the mistake of making overambitious claims. A review of the literature. As we've seen in the previous videos, from here we're going to need to take our reader the central focus of our investigation, depending on our topics. The main themes should aim to cover, at least in the review, if they exist in our subject area. So we need to discuss the major theories in the field, providing an overview of current thinking, historical development of the theory and practical advances, major published research findings, and the main problems and issues that remain. Now, the initial review for this research proposal needs to be clear, concise, and sufficient, and needs to be detailed enough to demonstrate your understanding of the field. The research design. So, present your plan of action for the research investigation and set out the major processes and procedures that you intend to follow. Now, this is going to be applied to both quantitative and qualitative research designs. Even though it is understood that the qualitative research projects will be iterative and very open to change, this does not mean that it is impossible to present a plan that provides a framework while still allowing for the emergent nature of the research. It is possible to begin with a broad research design and still remain responsive to the discoveries made in the field. It is important to remember that it is not sufficient to say that you intend to do. You must defend and justify your choices from the appropriate research methods via literature. This video is going to actually, or not this video, the section of this research should be referenced, okay? And not as heavily referenced as your literature review, but it is necessary to demonstrate your understanding of the methodology that you have read through the subject. Every choice and every decision relating to research design should be supported and justified from the published material that you have read. As you work through this book, you will need to follow the same structure recommended here. The methodology. Begin by stating your methodological position. The questions that you should be answering are, is the study qualitative or quantitative or a mixed methodology? Why have you made this decision? Why is this the most appropriate decision? And what are your research methods? Once you've discussed your methodological choices, you can then go on to state which research methods you will be applying to this investigation. The questions you should be answering are, what research methods are you applying to the study? Why have you made this choice? And how do you intend to structure the method or methods for your investigation? The data collection techniques. Defining your methods may well imply you will use a particular data collection technique, but whether it is the case or not, it is necessary to explain how you intend to collect the data you need for your investigation. The questions you should answer here are, what data collection techniques will be used, and why have you decided to use these techniques? Research instruments. You need to be clear, concise, and well supported in your research design. Your choices should be directly related to your research question. You may decide to follow recognized tradition in the field, or you may decide to take a very different approach to what has been done before. Whatever choice you make, you will need to demonstrate that you understand the nature of the choices that have been made. Intended sample. The sampling technique depends on your research design. Identifying how a sample will be achieved, and the technique and the procedures that will be used. Identify the research population and the size of the sample that will be used, if this can be determined at this stage, and how the sample will be contacted, as well as a brief description of the research setting, whether an organization, community, or group, or a very specific geographical area. It is important that you provide the detail of salient issues relating to your research topic, explaining what it is about this particular setting that makes it an ideal choice. Procedures for data processing and analysis. Explain any of the techniques that will be used for your processing and analyzing of the data. Describe the procedures you will use, which must relate directly back to the type of data that is to be collected. Highlight the major variables in the study and how these variables will be tested. Demonstrate an understanding of data processing is vital in a proposal. If you're planning to use a computer software for your analysis, then discuss it here and explain why it is appropriate. Anticipated research output. All research must have clearly defined outputs regardless of the level or nature of that research. All good research has a contribution to make, and it is important to state that the potential contribution clearly in a proposal. Research outputs should relate directly back to the stated aims of your research to clarify the intended output returned to the original purpose of your investigation. This section should be very concise, stating exactly what you hope to achieve and who will benefit in the research and how. Anticipated constraints. All research is restricted to some degree by constraints, and these constraints fall into two major categories: limitations of the study based on design, and potential problems relating to logistics. It's important to state any potential constraints in the proposal. It is highly likely that other things may occur during the course of the investigation, but at this stage it is still possible to highlight constraints that you know will in some way impact the overall output of the investigation. It may be that your sample is smaller than it would be ideal. Why is this? Why is it going to have an impact on your data collection? The research method you decide on may not be the ideal method, but it may be the very best you can do under the circumstances. Be sure to share this information at this stage in the process to clarify your awareness of the research process and to ensure that you will respond to any impact on the data when you engage in the process. Some ethical considerations. All research concerned with human participants needs to consider ethical issues. Universities and many other organizations have their own policies and ethics relating to research. Depending on what you intend to do and where you are intending to do it and who will be involved in your study, there will be a different regulation standards concerning the ethics of your research. In your research proposal, you must show that you understand the regulations you are bound by and that you have designed your study to conform to these regulations. A project timetable. All research proposals need to include a realistic and well-organized timetable. Present a schedule of your work that includes all elements of the research, both desk-based and empirical work. This should be structured in a way that critical incidents are highlighted, periods of intense activity can be easily identified, and each activity has been realistically scheduled. If you guys like this video, please comment, subscribe, and hit that like button, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.